With more, Fox News contributor, Trump supporter, and former presidential candidate himself, Governor Mike Huckabee, and former chief economist to President Obama, Austin Goolsbee. Good to see you both, gentlemen.
Hi, Sam.
Thank you very much, Shannon.
All right, Austin, I want to start with you. I mean, what do you make of this? And, of course, one of the things that Donald Trump said in response this weekend was there have been a litany of excuses. This is just the latest one. And what it came down to was the polling showed people didn't trust her, they didn't like her, and they didn't connect with her in the important Rust Belt. I mean, the votes are there. We're not talking about the Russians hacking into machines and changing votes, right?
I think that's right. And I'm not advocating that they go down and say, let's try to reverse the Electoral College vote. I think that would be weird. I think that you would have justifiable howls from the Republican side about doing that. But I think the way you have portrayed it, that this is a flip-flop by the media, I think is very misleading. Because the thing that Donald Trump was condemned for, rightfully, by people on both parties, was for alleging that the vote was rigged if he lost with no evidence ahead of time. That's totally different. And if there actually is evidence of foreign influence, we should investigate it. That's not the same thing at all.
What he got so much pushback for was during that debate with their own Chris Wallace, when he said, we accept the results of the election, and he said, well, I'm going to wait and see. We're going to see what happens. I mean, he wasn't even talking about anything being rigged, and that's when we saw Mrs. Clinton go on and say, you have to accept the results even when you don't like them. And she talked about how denigrating it was to the system to suggest that there was something untoward when there was no evidence of it.
To suggest that it is rigged with no evidence before the outcomes, and to literally say, if I do not win, then it is rigged by my opponent,
or I'm going to wait and see.
That is outrageous. This is totally different. There's actual evidence from the CIA that the Republican leader of the Senate and the Republican leader of the House say needs to be investigated. That's a totally different situation.
All right, Governor Huckabee, I want to bring you in here because what we're getting are leaks from an unnamed source who says they were debriefed or part of this briefing by the CIA, saying that, yes, everybody agrees that there was some untoward action by Russian actors, potentially linked directly to the Russian government, but to make the leap that they somehow changed the election results is a big one.
That's beyond any belief. I mean, you have to believe in unicorns to go there. The fact is, there was allegations that the Russians may have hacked into the DNC computers, but there's no evidence whatsoever that it had any impact on the election. My gosh, we just got word tonight that they recounted the votes in Wisconsin, and Donald Trump had 162 more votes than he had when they first counted. This is so unbelievable, and I'm ashamed for the Democrats and the press, but then I repeat myself, because when the New York Times has to dig out to the bottom of the birdcage to see what they wrote 8 weeks ago when they were whining about how terrible it was Donald Trump was saying something, and then they turn around and say the same thing, you know what the evidence of a rigged election was? The exposure of the DNC emails that showed that it was rigged against Bernie Sanders and toward Hillary Clinton. It was a fixed deal, and that was one of the things. I think the more amazing thing is that those DNC emails revealed just the contempt that Hillary and her chief lieutenants had for the working class people of America, and that's why she lost. And Democrats need to accept the results of a fair and free election, which is what they lectured Republicans about.
Austin, really quickly before we have to go, I mean, clearly those revelations were not good for her or the DNC.
Yes, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with the governor. I do not think that they should be going and trying to persuade the Electoral College to change their vote. I think that's just a bridge too far. I do think that they should investigate Russian interference in our political process. The Russians are trying to interfere in Western European political voting process, and that is a big deal, and it should be investigated. And to allege that that's the same thing as when Donald Trump was saying that the election was stolen when there was no evidence and before it took place, I just think is a different subject.
Yeah, and there's still a debate about whether here or there was that same evidence of Russia being able to do that. So far, none clear that we know of. Governor, just a one-word answer, yes or no. Are you in favor, as many of your GOP counterparts, the senators on the Hill, say that they want to see this investigated? Would you sign on to that?
It just depends on what they want to investigate. I mean, that's the real answer. And that's not a yes or no, but the yes or no is Well, yes, investigate whether Russia is hacking, but do something about cyber defense. Don't try to overturn the results of elections. People have voted. It's over.
Yeah.
These guys lost.
All right, we'll leave it there. Governor Austin, good to see you both.